Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another lovely Saturday evening. Welcome to Unfiltered. I am your host, Chaps McFarlane. Thank you for joining the show on this beautiful evening. We are very excited to have you joining us this evening. Please start a watch party if you can. Invite others to join, share our link, and leave your comments in the comment section. We are always happy when we receive comments from our viewers. If you have questions, please also leave your questions in the question section. I will get to them and I'll give you a shout out as the show progresses. We have a very, very great show today. We have a wonderful guest, Dr. Alma Osong, an aerospace engineer with NASA, joining us this evening. So it is built to be a good conversation. And I want to say this out of the start, that we will not be able to go through everything we want to discuss this evening because there is a lot to talk about with Dr. Osong. So I just want to reassure you that we will be having her on subsequent episodes to continue our discussion on all of the things that we have to talk about. So thank you again, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us. Dr. Osong will be joining us very shortly here. I will bring her on, but first of all, let me do this. As we say all the time on Unfiltered, the opinions, the materials, the views expressed on this show do not represent the views, opinions, and materials of any of my employers or the employers of the guests who come on the show. They are strictly our own independent views and that of the show Unfiltered. So again, thank you for joining us. Everyone who's come on, please leave your comments, say hi. I will give you a shout out. And also, if you have any questions, leave them in the comment section. Please share, invite others to join and start a watch party. Dr. Osong is already here with us, and I will be telling you a little bit about her before I bring her in. Dr. Alma Osong is an aerospace engineer, educator, speaker, and facilitator. She has worked on several engineering and non-engineering projects in the aerospace and aviation sectors. She currently supports NASA's Space Geodetic program. Please, we will be showing you exactly what that means. Her earlier career began as a government contractor supporting Federal Aviation Administration, the FAA. Later, she ventured out as an entrepreneur to head a 2.5 million logistics and transportation operations in the DMV area. And later, she served as VP in direct marketing in the telecom sector. She would later return to the field of engineering to support the FFA's Aerospace Medicine Safety Information System, and later to support NASA's Space Geodetic program, or VLBI, which is something we will get into. She has served as an adjunct faculty at the Catholic University of America, Metropolitan School of Business, and the Argosy University of Business. She provides mentoring and dissertation support to doctoral students. She holds a doctorate in management and organizational leadership from the University of Phoenix, master's in engineering from the Catholic University of America, and a bachelor's in electrical engineering from the University of District Columbia. She has had several speaking engagements, many of which involve talking about ongoing activism and advocacy issues that she cares about at the University of Massachusetts, Voice of America, Africa Straight Talk, at NASA, at ABA, Amber TV, CPS, and also topics including cybersecurity. She's had a lot of publications. I'm not going to read all of those, but she's also worked as a moderator, facilitator for the African Diaspora Cybersecurity Initiative. She has written her own works, some of which include In Their Own Words, 50 Years of Lord's Heritage, History, Personalities, and Tales. in 2012. My Faith, a Cameroon to be Renewed by Christian Cardinal Toomey, a critical book published in the Cameroon Post, and several other engagements where she's spoken and been a panelist on. She does do a lot of philanthropic work. So when she's not doing her regular work, which are a little bit few, as we've said, she's involved in advocacy, which she's passionate about, and frequently volunteers her time to various local, international charities, particularly those in support of at-risk young girls in the developing countries. In 2016, she helped raise $60,000 for scholarships for at-risk girls in her village of Mancon. And also, she has continued to support the ex-students association of her alma mater in all sorts of ways in which they support that college, Our Lady of Lourdes College. We will talk a little bit more about that. Dr. Osong is also a political analyst and a citizen activist, dedicating her time recently to work with international actors on peace initiatives to end the conflict in her native country of the Southern Cameroons. Ladies and gentlemen, without much ado, I will bring in Dr. Emma Osong. Hello, Doc.
Hey, Mark. How are you?
Good. How are you doing this evening?
Doing great. Great. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Looking really good.
Thank you. How is it going in COVID world in Canada?
It is COVID world, and we are here in Nova Scotia, surviving, trying to turn our minds onto the new normal, if I may call it that way, and just trying to be positive about the outlook of our future in this new era of COVID pandemic. How about you down there in the DMV, Maryland area?
Yes, we are coping. Thank God for health. I'm really grateful for that. Still very much indoors, as you can imagine.
Right.
And just taking it one day at a time. I guess you're right in stating that this is our new normal for the foreseeable future, right?
Yes, yes. So thank you so much for coming on the show. It is lovely to have you. And I was just telling our viewers that there is actually a lot we want to talk about and can talk about, but we will not be able to talk about everything. So we will be having you back, on many occasions to continue our discussions wherever we end today.
Oh, yes, certainly. You know how I feel about you, Mark. By the way, hello to all of your viewers. Glad to be here on Unfiltered, my first time. So I am praying that you go easy on me.
No, don't worry. This show is about, what ordinary people are doing, the extraordinary things that ordinary folks around are doing, whether to support our collective humanity or to inspire, our shared humanity. So, there's no going hard. It's all about conversation, and hopefully we can positively impact some lives. Hopefully somebody gets inspired to do something that they've put in the back burner, or hopefully somebody gets some advice or some information that helps them in a positive way. That's what this is about.
Looking forward to it. You and I love a great conversation. And as I said, coming first time on Unfiltered, I feel privileged. Thank you for doing what you're doing. We need more conversations than less, right? So kudos to you, my friend. Kudos for keeping this channel open.
Well, thank you. Let's get right to it because there's quite a bit in store. Okay, so I know everybody's listening to what I've read out about your bio, which I sort of edited some out because it's quite a very dense bio. You've done quite a bit in your life and in your career. But I think what sticks up is I talked about you doing work for NASA. You're an aerospace engineer. Tell us a little bit about what sparked that passion for engineering for a girl who grew up in Mancon and and attended Our Lady of Lourdes, an all-girls school.
That's true. That's true. Thank you for that. I think I owe this to someone who actually just passed away 2 weeks ago. I call him my adopted father, Brother Norbert.
Right.
He died in Canada about 2.5 weeks ago.
Yes.
He lived out a really...
We were talking a little bit about that, and I know we had some conversation about that when he passed.
Yes, yes. So if you ask me the question, how does a girl from Mancon, by the way, Juilana, if you're out there listening, hello. I just said good morning in my mother tongue. So to all the Mancon people out there, I'm Juilana. So for a girl who grew up from very humble beginnings, having very little opportunity to have the kind of education that I did have, I am particularly humbled and blessed to have had somebody come into my life at a very early age and mentored me and took interest, particularly mentoring me in the STEM environment, right? An environment that was exclusive to young boys and men, and very much so till today. That has changed some, but not sufficiently enough. So I give every credit and forever grateful to Brother Norbert Sims, who passed, of blessed memory, to have taken a great deal of interest in me, Mark M. Chaps, and tell me that I can play the game as well as the boys can. In other words, that confidence that you need in a discipline almost left to the exclusivity to men. So I stayed the course. It wasn't easy for a number of reasons, but it also was easy because I want any young girl who hears my voice on your show today to know that yes, it may sound like rocket science, but you can do it. You can do it and do it as well as the boys. So I played in that sandbox because I had the right mentorship. And that's why I don't seize the opportunity to mentor young girls and tell them that you can do this. You can be in this field and excel. And women are doing that in record numbers today than when I was going through not only high school, but engineering and also working in the field. So it takes a little bit of tenacity because, again, when you find yourself in a very male-dominated environment, there's a tendency not to want to stay with it. But I stuck with it. It has been rewarding. It has its challenges. It still continues to be a very heavy male-dominated environment, but it's fun. And I encourage young girls to consider STEM if they're in it. Don't give up. By the way, it's not all heady stuff. There's really some fun stuff in it, and that you will, if you make that your career, you really will enjoy it. And of course, we live in a multidisciplinary world, right?
Right.
So even when you think about areas like with heavy engineering work, NASA, aviation, the energy sector, there's a cross-disciplinary, cross-functional environment that can really benefit from a cross-section of people. So you can still not necessarily have an engineering degree and work in and be very successful and satisfied in the engineering world.
That's interesting because I was before we talk about more about Lords, because I wanna talk a little bit so our viewers can get a sense about your alma mater. But it's interesting that you talk about this cross-disciplinary, because you actually did your doctorate in management.
Yes, I like to say I'm one of those people that's eclectic is the word that comes to mind, and multidisciplinarian in my background, academic and also professional.
Mm-hmm.
I cross disciplines, and I make the joke that when I got tired of the heavy fast Fourier transform equation and literally phenomenally tired, I thought I should really do something credible, right? And for me, the important things was to steep my feet, so to speak, in the social sciences, in the humanities, in philosophy, in the stuff having to do with human capacity development into political science and so forth. So for me, that was the real challenge. I have this short story I tell that when I started my doctoral work, I almost flunked out. Why? Because I couldn't string 2 words, 2 sentences in an essay to save my life. So I came through a discipline where English was a mandatory subject, but you do it as your last resort so you can get your degree. It wasn't foremost in my mind. The physics, the chemistry, the math, in all its variations were more the focus and where my energy went in the STEM subjects. So I used the other ones more like my electives and required courses just so I can say I have a degree. So when I ventured to do a heady terminal degree, I thought the heavy lifting was really in those domains. And true to form, I'd like to tell your viewers that that's really, really where the heavy lifting is. Whenever I have the opportunity to mentor young people, MCHEPs, I tell them that you need a few skills. And if you look around you, I think my theory is true. You need to be a good communicator. You need to be able to tell people what you're doing. And that's where the inspirational aspect of our being comes from. Once you can get those things down packed, right? You can almost always excel. And I use the examples of the Oprah Winfrey, the Obamas, the Michelle Obamas of the world. The one gift they come to in this world and share with other people is their gift to inspire, their gift of caring, their gift of communicating and making themselves able to tell people what they are about and what they can see in themselves. That quality, attribute, sometimes people miss it and believe that being in the STEM as a career is the more challenging area to be in. I say the complement to that, and equally important, MCHEPs, are the people that marry the two, can take what they get from the humanities, the social science discipline, the philosophy, the political sciences of the world, that caters to the development of the person.
Right.
And marry that to this other field. They really are the more inspiring people as far as I'm concerned. Right. And I always encourage young people not to give up those skills, you know. Yeah.
So in a joking way, you're saying that the rocket scientists should become human.
That's right. That's right. Yes. Well, bottom line, MCHEPs, you have to be able to tell people what you want them to do. You have to get them to see your vision. You have to be able to communicate that. You have to have the what I call the CEO of Me Incorporated, being able to take what your convictions are, your confidence and clarity, and moving people and yourself forward, right? Those are things that are important, and sometimes we miss them when we are so focused only on doing. We have to be at some point, even though both are important.
Right. Absolutely powerful. Let's go back a little bit and talk about your alma mater, because I know that there might be a bunch of lessons watching or subsequently watching. And hey, shout out to all the lessons out there. But talk to us a little bit about that experience. You know, we grew up knowing Lords. Our Lady of Lords was one of the top schools in the country. You know, always at the top, very competitive. It was an all-girls school. You know, sometimes beating down the boys and some of the mixed schools. So talk to us about that experience, how that shaped really who you are, and pretty much you've carried a lot of that into your life beyond that, because you're an ex-student of Lords, you're part of LESA, and you guys are doing a lot of work. You started that scholarship, you know, which is helping other girls, you know, perhaps realize the dreams and maybe go across some of the challenges that you experience by just having a little hand. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so if there are any unfiltered viewers out there watching who are lessons, ex-students of Lords, a big shout out. That's me blowing a kiss out to you. We form a really tight bond. The period of my secondary education, like for most people, at the formative years, and some of us were so privileged, right?
Right.
I like to say we were, because you're right in describing the college as one of the more preeminent colleges in that part of this thing we call Cameroon.
Right.
Yes, many parents sought to send their young girls into these boarding institutions, and one of the two that were really at the top of scholarship and at the top of just teaching and raising kids to go out in the world and really not only contribute, but become key players was Our Lady of Lords. As I mentioned to you earlier, when you began the conversation by mentioning what I do professionally now, and I said I gave credit to my adopted father. He really played a key role for me going to that institution. As you can imagine, these are very expensive colleges. We call them colleges. In America, they'll call them middle to high school. Right. But boarding, yeah. So they really form part of who we are today. Some of the top graduates from Lords, some lessons occupy one of the top places around the world. I can name a few here. Some of you would know Vera Songwe, who heads the ECA in Africa. My dear friend and sister, Yam Magi, just recently retired as head of country for Africa Development Bank. I can go on and on. So this is an institution that really prides itself for the kind of alumni it has and kind of education it has provided. The only sad point that I am pressed to state here when I speak about LESA, and I'll come back to it in a little bit, is that as a result of the war that some of your viewers might know or not know, that's currently taking place in that region, Southern Cameroon, Amazonia, it's impacting the education of young girls. So you can well imagine that not only is the quality of education, but the entire infrastructure is suffering as a result of that. But we can have that discussion later. But LESA is really a pride and joy. As a matter of fact, if your viewers know anything about it, the alumni is in its jubilee year. It will be celebrating 50 years next year. That is how old this, not the institution, but the body that is called the association and people who subscribe to that.
Right.
But I am proud to let your viewers know. I'm not very good at singing my own praises, but I was the founding president of LESA in the USA. Now I hate myself, okay? And yes, one of the one of the things that lessons and under my leadership back then, I'm really proud of was the fact that we instituted a 5-year scholarship scheme. If you can think of way back when, I like to say what we did when I was president would be equivalent to at least 50,000 in scholarship today, where we were able to do for young girls like myself who lost a parent very young and were at risk, right, of not going into such a prestigious and renowned institution. We give those young girls the opportunity, yeah, reaching back and lifting each other up by the bootstrap. So the legacy of LESA runs really deep, and they continue to do some really good work. So I'm proud to be of that crowd, really proud.
That's really great. Fellow viewers, if you're just joining us, this is Unfiltered, and I'm Chaps McFarlane, your host. Our guest is the one and only Dr. Emma Osong. She's an educator, aerospace engineer, facilitator. She wears so many hats, and we've talked about a lot of those in the beginning. We'll be talking a little bit about more as we go on in the show. I just want to read some of the comments from some of our viewers. We have Macmillan Mokom, who says, thank you, Dr. Emma, for being on the show today. It is a great pleasure listening to you, Dr. Emma. Very inspiring message. We have Macmillan is also from that region of the Cameroons, so I know him very well. We also have Paolo Dino on the show, who's giving a big thumbs up to all of the message. And we have other viewers that are on the show. To all of our viewers, thank you for joining. I'm going to be giving you a shout out very shortly here as we progress. But Doctor, let's get back onto what we were talking about. Tell us a little bit about what you actually do for NASA, because when I read your bio, I talk about you working to support NASA's space geodetic programs. And I know we had a little video that you sent to me to say you could explain a little bit of that. So do you want me to play that before you talk, or what do you want to do?
Let me just situate it a little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, so I hope there's some young, your kids are watching, because I like them.
My kids are definitely watching.
I like them to see this. They'll find it interesting. So let me just preface that before you play the short clip for your audience. So I work for NASA, as you've announced, in their program called the NASA Geodetic program. Geodesy is a science that studies the Earth orientation and Earth parameters. So I like to say that we keep something called the International Terrestrial Reference System. And I work specifically on a program called Very Long Baseline Interferometry, VLBI. I'm laughing because every time I'm asked to explain what I do, it's a mouthful. It sounds too heady. So really, what this is in simple terms is a global system of stations, including what I've just said is called VLBI, and another that is called a satellite laser ranging system, something called DORIS, you can imagine it as the name, and another thing called Global Navigation System that most people understand. So the International Terrestrial Reference System, really, all it does in very simplistic terms is it keeps a stable, accurate, and consistent data about the Earth's orientation. So MCHEPs, if I told you what you see first thing in the morning and last thing as the night is coming up, most people will say, I see the sun rising and I see the sun setting. But you will know that that's from your perspective, right? Because the other person somewhere else is seeing something else. Maybe they're seeing the sun at 12 o'clock, like we do in Bamenda.
Right.
So what does all of this stuff does? This system really is a collection of ground stations. Think about it as gigantic satellites, dishes, right?
Right.
Just big enough, situated around the globe, you know, Tahiti, Hawaii, throughout the world. There's actually just one in Africa, and I wonder why. So these satellites kind of receive signals from very distant stars that are called quasars. And for the young ones listening, I just want to tell you how some of these things might be complex, but yet simple, right? So if you learn that velocity is the equivalent of distance and time, if you know the speed of something, right, and you know the time, you can measure the distance. So in order for us to know where we're going, like in GPS, we have to have a reference point. Otherwise, we will get lost, right? So some of the applications are in GPS as we know it, navigation as we know it, finding out what the weather would be tomorrow and next year, earthquakes, sea level, sea rise. So I'll let you play that movie for our audience.
before all this big science, big science, but yes, let me do that right now, and then you can explain further. Let's just see. Let's get this going.
Exactly 24 hours in a day. The ground only.
Okay. There we go. So.
Great.
There are exactly 24 hours in a day. The ground only moves during an earthquake, and the Earth rotates just like it does on a globe. And generally speaking, that makes sense. But scientists who like to find out exactly what's going on know the ground actually moves around quite a bit. Days are never quite 24 hours, and the Earth actually wobbles on its axis in a very particular way as it revolves around the sun. Scientists know all this by using a technique called very long baseline interferometry, which is basically a fancy term for using radio dishes to very precisely measure the Earth's orientation. VLBI was originally developed back in the 60s to take pictures of quasars. Early on, though, someone realized that because quasars never really move, you could use them as reference points, throw the whole process in reverse, and figure out how all the telescopes were moving relative to one another. Basically, when a quasar emits a radio wave, that wave reaches different telescopes at different times. For astronomy, you'd use a computer to imitate a giant telescope and get a good picture of the quasar. But if you instead pay close attention to the time differences, you can use geometry to figure out how far apart the telescopes are. And by making lots of those measurements, you can start to see how the ground beneath the telescopes moves around, when you have to adjust your clock, and that the Earth wobbles on its axis as it moseys around the sun. So the next time you feel like you've had a long day, or that your house is a few millimeters from where you last left it, you can switch on a bunch of radio telescopes, point them at quasars, and find out just how right you are.
So Mark, show that to the kids.
Yes, I will.
To most
people.
There we go. So that is a little explanation of a little bit of what you were explaining about what you do. I just want to give a little shout out before we go on. I see Sydney Tapp joined us. Hi, Sydney. Andrew Doan, thanks for joining. Paolo Dino, Shannon, and everyone else who's joining. I can see you. I'm going to be reading your comments a little bit soon. Leave those comments. We appreciate it. If you have any questions for Dr. Osong, please leave them in the comment section. We will be getting to it. So I think the kids are going to enjoy watching that and understanding. What I found interesting was what you said, that if, or what the video said at the end, that if you wake up and you see your house has shifted a little bit, then you know what's going on. I've always found out sometimes that, you know, you think things are just not where they were before, but, you know, you just can't explain, right? So you just think, oh, okay, well, I'll let this go.
So yes, your house does move and time does change. There's really not 24 hours in a day. Those are all facts. But there's the changes are so minute for the human body to notice, right? The only time we will notice is if there's a shift in the tectonic plates, as in an earthquake, you will notice your house actually moves. But the shift in the Earth's orientation, the movements in the tectonic plates, and the international reference, a terrestrial reference frame, they do shift. And to us humans, they are largely imperceptible. So what we work on, actually, we are the gold standard for time around the world. So if you really want to know the true time,
we should call you.
These collection of systems do actually keep the real time in the world. And as I said, for those who are interested, what it boils down to, what all this complex science boils down to, is really at the elementary level for us, knowing where point A is in reference to point B. Of course, there are more interesting and in-depth applications for military purposes. You can imagine what that portends. And if, for instance, you wanted to build a bridge from one side of a big river to another side, right? You want to make sure that the point you start and where you want to end is accurate. Most times you can't make that measurement because the distances are so great.
Right.
You rely on this technology. If you want to know how the world's weather pattern might change, you use this technology, the data out of this technology. So it does have far-reaching implications for our lives here on Earth. But for those of us who do this stuff, it just feels like a bunch of data. And for the young women out there, they do need you in this field. There is actually, NASA runs a very fantastic internship program and promotes a lot of young women to come into the program, and a lot of them get their career in this field through those internships. So I want to encourage parents who are listening to look into NASA's internship programs. They are very flexible, they are very interesting, and they put a lot of effort into encouraging young girls to take on from high school. They start at high school because they want to get them when they are young and get their interest cemented at that level. So I see a lot of young high school students come through the NASA program, college students, and some stay on and some go on to work in very innovative fields.
Thank you very much. That's so powerful, and I'm sure a lot of parents are taking note. Let's move a little bit to talk about some other things that we want to explore. Talk to us a little bit about, you know, this work that you do on the advocacy level for peace as a facilitator. You know, talk to us a little bit. I know we won't have enough time to go into details, but as we have discussed, we would be doing a lot more specific focused program on the conflict in the Cameroons and all of the efforts around that. But just so our viewers know, tell us a little bit about this other hat that you wear.
Yeah, so one of my passions is really young girls at risk. Even when I was a little girl, whatever program I could put myself into that looks at what can we do to ensure no young girl is left behind. In America, you'll hear no kid is left behind. I think from where we come from, MCHAPS, we see that as the world progresses, 50% of our population struggles behind. And that 50% looks like me.
Right.
comes from backgrounds like my own. And I never pass up an opportunity to see how I can advocate for them, how I can raise funds that go directly in impacting communities and sectors that directly touches on girls, on education, on reintegration into work. So beyond the work I did when I was part of LESA, it has always been my MO, whether it's part of another group that I am involved in. As a matter of fact, 3 years ago, I was part of a women's group. I'll keep the name off record for now. I helped raise $65,000 to offer a 5-year scholarship scheme to at-risk girls in Mancon, where I come from. Mm-hmm. And the first year scholarship scheme was implemented. But as you know, Mark, that's the year that the war broke out in southern Cameroon, where President Biya decided to declare war on us. And that work has been suspended as of now, unfortunately. So you can also appreciate that as a result of this war, the young girls are the most at risk. They were first at risk, right? So when the choice is to send, when a family of humble means had the choice to send a child to school, and there was a boy and a girl, the boy generally gets the leg up, right? Either to the better school or exclusively to school, and the girl either goes to another school or perhaps not at all. And I know the times have changed, and these things really are not as prominent, but still we find dropouts higher in young girls, early teen pregnancy, and again, the choice to go work in the farm as opposed to be in school. The burden is always borne more by women. So I am passionate about those things, and I don't miss out on the opportunity to do so. So those are some of the things that I do at the level of advocacy, continue to do it. But as you said, you and I have found ourselves playing that role again at a different level, right? Right. This war in Amazonia was thwarted on us, and some of us have been thrust into working and fighting with our last breath to bring swift end to hostilities in those areas, engaging all and any, whether it's at the ground zero level, whether it's at the diaspora level, whether it's at the international level, first, to ensure that there is cessation of hostilities, and secondly, and most importantly, to end and find a permanent solution, permanent lasting solution to the crisis. So if you may call that advocacy, then yes, I am advocating as best as I can.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your comments, your work, your advocacy, and just you coming on the show. And again, there is a lot to unpack. And as I've told our viewers, we will be having Dr. Osong here on many occasions. You will get to know her very well, and you get to hear a lot of the things that she does. Some, I work with her in doing these things, and we would really love to have our viewers engaged because we need you, right? The reason you can do a lot of this work is because you need the people who support this work, the people who benefit from it, we need them to continue to press so that you are energized to continue to fight on their behalf and on the behalf of the people that are closest to them. Let us see if we have any questions in the comments section. And if not, we are going to talk about one other thing before we get to the top of the hour. Like I told you before, an hour goes by real quick.
Yeah, when you're having fun.
So we have also joining us Dr. Frida Mambo. She's been a guest on this show. Thank you for joining. Blaise Nenji says hello. Those are all Southern Cameroonians, Ambazonians who are joining to say hello and listening to you, Dr. Osong. Mani Etive, hello everyone who's joining. Thank you for joining. Thank you for watching. This is Unfiltered. We've had Dr. Osong here with us talking about her work, be it in advocacy, be it in the aerospace industry, be it in supporting at-risk young girls across the continent, and also encouraging people who want to explore the options of engineering, especially the ladies, giving them some tips for programs that are being run by NASA. Let us talk about one more thing that is right within your field. You did your doctoral in management. Talk to us a little bit about entrepreneurship, because that seems to be something that is lacking, or at least at the higher levels within, you know, the Afro-diasporan community, compared to other communities. Like when you look at, say, you know, the East Indian community, the way the entrepreneurship in those communities work, the Asian communities, the way it works. Talk to us a little bit about entrepreneurship.
A broad topic, but the short answer is really that we have to move from what one would call the ABCs of life. And what do I mean by that? The accusing, blaming, and complaining, and move into the doing, because the opportunities are vast, right? So when I hear you speak about communities, and you make reference to Indian communities, perhaps you might want to draw parallels with, say, the Jewish community. So communities that have high entrepreneurial spirit,
right,
and seem to do it in collaborative fashion, seem to understand coming together, synergies. Let me use some big words here. Excuse me. So what's the big idea when it comes to entrepreneurship? There's innovation and creativity. Creativity is here, right?
Right.
You get innovative and creative about bringing ideas and making something new that has not been thought of. That can come at an individual level. But if you want to take that far, you're going to need people to come together and make that idea viable, more than likely. So the big idea for me, if I can dare to give your audience advice on entrepreneurship, is the big idea is collaboration, right? So we move away from the knight in shiny armor, do it myself and do it fast, to where are the centers, you know, the masterminds, where can I immerse myself, where I have the help, I have the ability to collaborate with like-minded people, so my idea can have traction and go further. If we use our own communities, let's look at our tribe, right? The people who play in our sandbox, we echo each other. If I may venture a big idea, it would be that of collaboration today in terms of entrepreneurship. And what I may add is the COVID-19 is once in a lifetime phenomenon that is not only killing people and causing a lot of heartache, but creating and literally shifting the ground under our feet.
Right.
So those who believe in this concept of how do I make lemon out of lemonades, here is an opportunity that we have as in our lifetime, to see the most radical shift in our lives, the complete digitalization of our lives as we know it.
Right.
So if ever we are to wear our entrepreneurial hat, this is the time, because if you follow the markets, people would tell you about when are the good times for opportunities, when are the times when markets are contracting, when are contractions complete, and when are the markets emergent. So if we argue that we are seeing the greatest contraction of the entire market space and business space since the turn of the century, Marcheps, we can also agree that at the end of that contraction are the opportunities that emerges and offers a wealth and a whole treasure trove of opportunities that can now be spun off. Mm-hmm. So the entrepreneurial spirit should not be dampened because of COVID, but rather should be ignited and excited. And if I could offer anything here, it's really this concept of find that that master space to collaborate in, because therein your ideas are nurtured, your ideas are supported, and you can spring from there. If we learn that and practice that, right, I think from an entrepreneurial standpoint, we all will be successful. And if we capitalize, right, on trends, right, then we can also use these opportunities where we see radical changes that look so dire and desperate as also springboard for possibilities.
So you're talking about leveraging our communities, especially we have an emerging young demographic within the African community right now, the African continent, the African diaspora. And so there are all sorts of opportunities there for entrepreneurial collaboration and also leveraging those communities within a collaborative effort to really actually take advantage and emerge from whenever we emerge at the other side of the pandemic and all of what it has caused, the human, economy, social, and well-being, we can at least have some new innovative ideas that can transition us to the next centuries,
yes,
possibly.
Yes, indeed. I think, Mark, the one conversation that we have not had, but that I've seen in other communities, is really asking the question, what does COVID-19 mean for our community, right?
Right.
I don't know about your audience, but I'm sure they have participated or learned about different bodies that are hosting webinars on COVID-19, right, but asking some really critical questions around it, from the role of women in COVID-19, because we always are the brunt of every disaster. Yes. We carry the brunt.
Yes.
Women out there, do I hear an amen? In the family realm, in the professional realm, more women than men may never see their industry come back. So I see this, and as we speak of entrepreneurship and the particular time that we are in, one conversation that I hope our community, again, if we go back only to our tribe, should be having are discussing the critical questions around COVID-19, right? These might be a little bit of heady matters. We would just as soon want to forget this devastation on humanity. But as some have pointed out, how do we capitalize? Yes, just bear with me on using that word, on what the potential and possibilities are coming out of this pandemic. Those are some of the big ideas that I would like to see our community tackle. So we come together and ask some really critical questions, take some comments and questions, distill and come out with some big ideas that people can really use. So I say that we have some work to do though.
Right. And just before we go, I just wanted to, because you raised this issue about women being always at the forefront, bearing the brunt. It was interesting. I was in a conversation with a few of my legal colleagues on a committee, and this issue came up. And certainly, I just wanted to raise it to get your perspective. And basically, the issue was about the disproportionate effects of the COVID-19 and all of these new work requirements from home on women. And also, you talked about a lot of women are going to lose their jobs as they knew it as a result of this digitalization. That is a side effect of this, but also the wage gap. Also because, for example, women in certain professions who cannot now do all of the full capacity of what they were doing, partly because, you know, they have children who are at home, schools are not reopening, you know, so they have to, you know, at the same time cater to that. And then they are not out there if they are entrepreneurs, you know, doing what they need to be doing as entrepreneurs. And so that causes a further shrinkage in wage, which there is already a gender a gap in wages. And so give us a little bit of your perspective. And then the other big part of it was mental health. You know, a lot of, whether it be single moms or it be women who have to have an additional stress or mental health challenges about how to navigate the situation where, you know, something that was maybe satisfying to them as their career, their work, perhaps they cannot go out and do that right now, but they also have these other challenges of, you know, the kids that will normally go to school or will be at daycare and have all this care provided. They have to now do that at the expense of all these other things that, not to say that, you know, parental care is not satisfying, but of all these other things that are personally satisfying to them outside of the parental arrangement. So it would be interesting to hear your perspective.
I'd like to start by saying that on these matters, I'm going to talk as a mother. And I'm going to be very careful not to venture out of my expertise, however limited it might be. Mental health, policy issues, domestic issues, but we can talk about the impact that these changing times are having on women. Because yes, I am a woman, and I'll speak from that perspective and the perspective of a mother and confine myself wholeheartedly to that. So yes, these are challenging times for women, and more so in matters of work-life balance. It was challenging before. It will be challenging moving forward. Recently, I received a letter from my city councilman. He's very good at communicating quite frequently with his constituencies. So when President Trump ordered that his economy should be reopened, there were guidelines being issued by governors from every level down to mayors, right? So I received my own communication in my household and telling us what was open, what is not going to be open, what is restricted in terms of numbers. So there is an understanding that education as we know it is changing under our feet.
Right.
There is the idea of staggered schooling. There's the idea of one half of a class being in person and the other being virtual and swapping. There is the idea that the old brick and mortar, if I may use those terms, classrooms and universities are going to be relics, and that only a few very elitist and very high-ranking colleges, universities, and even campuses are going to stay open. So why do I take the time to say all of this? Women traditionally have the burden of child rearing. That is changing. Mind you, I know the guys are gonna jump on me on this.
I think, go ahead.
But so you find households now having to readjust on every level. Mom and dad are working on one table. John and Susie are doing homework, and the two are crossing on each other. And then, of course, there's dinner to be made. And all of this within the confines of 25 square, 100 square feet of home. That's 1,200 is the average, 25 is luxury.
Right.
And maybe the park. So yes, we have entered a time where we have to check our mental health. We have to check the modalities of our home, and there's no telling where all of this is going and how soon we return. I just want to conclude by saying that as mothers, we have always juggled multiple hats. One time I was asked to do, I digress here, to talk about when we were calling ourselves Cameroonians, the Cameroonian woman in the diaspora, and I wrote a paper for the Cameroonian Professional Society called "The Cameroonian Woman: A Paradox." It may be somewhere online. I think I went all out in describing somewhat the enigmatic nature of not the woman per se, but this woman, this particular woman, who in their collective, all of us, left a culture that we were formed in, found ourselves somewhere else, being molded differently, and finding ourselves what I call the sandwich generation, where for the first time we are in a society that is raising children and raising parents, not because the parents can raise themselves, but because we are of the tradition that we don't send our parents to nursing homes. So we become that sandwich generation: school, parenting, life, generational interaction, all under the same roof, from the end of our formative years, our early careers, our early marriage lives, to our later lives. And this is also the generation on whose shoulders a war has been trusted and thwarted. So if there was ever a generation challenge away from their homeland, I think our generation, Mark, in a way, we are still being challenged, but we are up to the task though. So finally, gender matters.
Right.
COVID is telling us that we have to rethink a lot of things, and for us, we have to do some things differently.
Right.
But again, it's the generation that has been tested. We are standing to the challenge, and we continue to stand to the challenge. And we need you guys to not let us down, though.
Well, wow, it's been a powerful conversation. I am looking forward for more of these conversations. Thank you so much. You've spoken directly to the heart of women. I could see Franca Zingum right there throwing the amens and putting the hands in the air and the thumbs up for all that you've been saying. Micah Smith, thank you for joining. Fortunately or unfortunately, we have come to the end of this first segment of your inaugural episode here on Unfiltered, and I can say that we are looking forward to a lot more, which is in store for future episodes. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your already busy schedule. We really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mark. I enjoy this. You know, you and I, we could talk all day. But let's talk about things that really interest your audience. So I am really happy to be here. As you can tell, it's just like talking to an old friend, as I often say to you. So however I can share, I am happy to do so. As I say, it's about this goal interdependence, right? Collaboration. Right. So here we are. And to your audience, take care, you all. Be safe, and see you in other places or another time on Unfiltered.
All right. That was Dr. Osong. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining the show, fellow viewers. We will have her again soon. Tune in next Saturday. We have another incredible show next Saturday. And as I've said, Dr. Osong is going to be a regular on the show alongside with some other guests who have previously been on the show. And also, this is our 21st episode, and we are gradually coming to the end of our season 1. And I've told our viewers that season 2 is going to be out of this world, because there's a lot of other things that we are going to incorporate in the show that we have learned along the way as we have had our season 1. And the show is going to really, really, really take on a new level. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I appreciate you. Happy Saturday. Enjoy the weather. Thank you so much. And until next Saturday, salute.